So I've been working on this new adaptation of the Oz books. It's called Return to Oz.
Oh, I love The Wizard of Oz. I think kids would love to come see this.
Yeah, it's been years since we've had an Oz movie. I think it would be great.
Years, decades.
Decades.
Yeah,
literally.
It's been a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. Tell me about it. I mean, the kids are going to want to come see these characters. I cannot wait to see the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. That's going to be great.
Well, we're kind of ditching those characters. They're in it, but they don't really have a whole lot to do. We're kind of coming up with some new characters.
Okay, so what is it about these new characters that's going to draw these kids in?
Well, one is like a goldish wind-up toy that is a soldier.
Okay.
And he like beats people up.
That sounds violent.
And you ever seen that movie, Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yeah, everyone's seen that.
Yeah, we're going to have a rip-off of one of those characters in it.
A rip-off of? Like?
Yeah, he's got a big pumpkin head, and he's like skinny and tall, and he walks around.
Okay, well, what's his name?
Jack.
That's literally the same character.
Yeah. Well, we also have a hen.
A hen?
Yeah.
Well, where's Toto?
He's gone. We just have a hen who talks.
Okay. But Toto didn't talk in the original.
I know, but the hen's going to talk in this one.
Okay.
Sorry, that's just the way it is.
Okay. Well, what's going to happen and what's going to make this story dynamic? Like, we're going to get these new characters. What's going to make this story dynamic and fun for these kids?
Well, we're going to have a witch.
Okay, like the Good Witch, Glinda.
No, this one's going to be bad.
Okay.
But
Wicked Witch of the West.
She takes over the land of the Emerald City.
Uh-huh.
And she's stolen a bunch of people's heads, and she just wears all these beautiful women's different heads.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
You just slayed the cat.
Thank you.
Slay the cat. Slay the cat. Podcast.
Slay the cat is speaking truth. Slay the cat is proof. Here is top your favorite film. Slay the cat is juiced. Slay the cat podcast. Slay the cat podcast. Slay the cat podcast. Slay the cat podcast.
What's up to all my wheelers out there keeping it real? You're listening to Slay the Cat, a movie podcast. I'm your host, Joey, alongside my wife and co-host,
Aaron, who also has 30 heads that trades them out, depending on my mood.
Oh, boy. I've only seen that one head.
Well, that's all you get.
Okay, cool.
I got 31 personalities.
You're like the Baskin Robbins of personalities.
That's kind of what she is.
Yeah.
Because depending on the head she gets a different personality.
Yeah, that is true.
You don't get. I wish we would see more personalities.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be so cool to like get a rundown of each head.
I know. Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Today we are going to be talking about the 1985 cult classic Return to Oz.
Cult classic.
Yes, it is a cult classic, I believe. It did not do well in the theater.
I'm not surprised.
And no, I'll get into it in a minute. Before we get into the movie, though, I want to ask Aaron, what are some lesser-known things that, like adaptations or something like that, that you prefer over the other ones?
This one for sure.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I much prefer this movie to the original.
Yeah, me too.
But also, like, you know that Megadeth is my favorite band.
Yes.
But most people prefer Metallica. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So what are some stuff like that you like?
Well, I have a similar one to you that has to do with bands.
Okay.
So Taking Back Sunday.
Don't know them.
Okay. Well, anyways, they had a performer. One of their, I think it was a guitarist. I think that's what he plays. He plays guitar. And he like had some beef with the lead singer, of the band, and he broke off and made his own band called Brand New.
Okay, yeah, I
and
know Brand New.
Yeah, and I prefer Brand New to Taking Back Sunday.
Would you say most people prefer Taking Back Sunday?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
but I don't think a lot of people know of Brand New as well as Taking Back Sunday.
Okay.
Taking Back Sunday is definitely the Metallica of that.
Okay, I understand.
So I feel like I didn't know about Megadeth until I met you.
Oh, really?
Really, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started by getting into Metallica, and then as I learned more about Metallica, I heard that there was this guy in the band that they kicked out, and he started his own band, and I was like, well, I'm getting tired of listening to Metallica. Maybe I'll check this guy out too. And I was like, wow. I mean, they have a couple really good albums, but over time,
Yeah.
my love of Megadeth like has way overshadowed Metallica to where I only like one Metallica album now.
Yeah. Well, with mine, with Brand New, like I like both bands. I wouldn't say that I exponentially like one more than the other. But I think I am drawn more towards Brand New songs than Taking Back Sunday. But I didn't know that they were part of, like, I didn't know that the lead singer was part of Taking Back Sunday.
Okay.
Until, like, actually probably like 5 or 6, maybe 8 years ago. It's been in the past like 10 years, but like this happened like in the 90s when they kind of split apart. Maybe it was 2000s. I can't remember. But
I know Brand New's been around for a while.
Yeah, they've both been around for a while because as soon as like it was very early on in their career. I think they like started their first album together with him, and then they broke off after that. Because like I think in their first album, they even like had a song that was like one of my favorite things. Is that they have songs that kind of like are targeted towards each other, and they kind of like have little like bitch moments, like you're a bitch and I hate you, and like it's like no, you're a bitch and I hate you.
So there's like a call and response between the two bands.
Yes, literally one time there's this one song that Brand New did, and it says his lyrics are, "Is that what you call tact? You're as subtle as a brick in the small of my back. So let's end this call and end this conversation." And then Taking Back Sunday did a song. I think it's called "There's No I in Team." I think that's the song that it's in. But they took those lyrics and they had the second singer sing that part. So they are constantly like cute. Taking Back Sunday did a song that's "There's No cute cute without the E" or something like that. And it's like a poke at him.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I like that little like feud. It makes me feel like
Yeah.
so I think that's fun. But I'm more drawn to Brand New's music than Taking Back Sunday. But I like Taking Back Sunday as well.
All right. Cool. I've found that I kind of gravitate towards the lesser of two things. If two bands get compared to each other a lot, like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, like I'm more of a Rolling Stones guy.
Okay.
But Beatles are obviously the bigger band, even though they haven't really cut an album.
Yeah.
And half the members are dead. There's some other ones I can't think of now.
I feel
but
like
I can't really think of anything movie wise.
No, I feel like I generally if I like it, I like it. I don't I'm not like depending on the lesser twos, because I can't think of a Rolling Stones song right now.
I see a red door and I want to
I like that
paint
song.
it black. Yeah,
Okay.
I much prefer the Rolling Stones. I think
But they were like compared to the Beatles?
I think so.
Okay. I find them very different.
They are very different.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe it's a bad comparison. Also, I think of like Rush and Led Zeppelin in the same vein.
Are they?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody else does, but I do. And I prefer Rush. I'm a Rush guy over Led Zeppelin. Mm-hmm. But Led Zeppelin is considered this legendary band, and I'm like, sure, they had some good songs, I guess.
Yeah. I definitely feel like if I listen to something or if I watch something and I like it, I don't care like what other people have really to say about it.
Yeah, of course.
Well, because
I
I
mean,
feel like
that's-
I feel like there are people that are definitely impressionable in that way.
Well, yeah,
of,
some people can be assholes, but I found that I'm one of the people who kind of gravitates towards the bigger crowd goes here, and then I'm part of the smaller crowd that goes the
Yeah.
opposite way. But I
Yeah.
don't know why. Like when all those Marvel movies came out, even though I grew up reading Marvel comics, I was like, ugh, I don't want to watch this. Like I don't know why. Maybe I'm some douchebag nonconformist or whatever, but that's kind of how I go. And I kind of feel like you're the same. Like,
yeah, you're right. Because like whenever like all those Marvel movies came out, I was like, I don't want to go see any of them.
well, the thing is, you've always been like, I don't even like movies, which you do like movies.
I do like movies.
But when everybody else is like, oh, movies are so great, you're in the smaller crowd that's like, no, actually, I prefer theater.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess you're a little bit like that too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or a lot like that. I don't know.
Well, I think, but it's not because less people like it. It's definitely
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
okay.
I'm not saying it's because less people like it. I think there's just some
You're just
people,
more drawn to things that
yeah,
are less mainstream.
maybe. Or
I feel like I am
niche.
definitely that.
I like niche
yes,
stuff.
yes,
better.
okay, yes. I am that way then.
Oh, another thing is like I don't think it's weird to like Hondas as performance cars anymore, but for a while it was. Like people would make fun of the guys who were into Hondas, and I've always been a Honda guy.
Yeah.
And Toyota too. Whereas in America, it's always been about the American muscle, and I've always been like, no, 4 cylinders are cool, man. 4 cylinders it's more fun to make a small engine have a lot of power. Like it's easy to make a big engine have a lot of power. So yeah, it's
yeah,
just some
I
weird
would
thing.
say I like niche things, but also there are like if something that is mainstream and I like it, I'm like yeah, I'll like it. But I'm not gonna. I feel like there are people that are like if something is mainstream, they're like boycott. I will not like that thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm like that for the most part, but I do like niche things often.
Yeah, like we were talking about the Marvel movies. The Marvel movies I have seen, I thought were good and like really well made because they have so much money and so many great actors behind them. But it's just like I'm not getting into it like the other people are getting into it.
I'm not big into superhero movies in general.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big superhero like fanatic. Even growing up, like my brother's into superheroes.
Yeah.
And like I would watch it with him, but I wasn't like super invested. So
Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to say, like, I don't hate the Marvel movies. It's fashionable to hate on the Marvel movies now.
Is it?
Yeah. There's a whole subreddit called Fuck Marvel.
Oh my gosh.
But like
Well, I was definitely part of that before it was cool. I'm a hipster.
I just want to say, like, I didn't really get heavily into the movies. I've seen like maybe half of them, maybe even less. But
I've seen
I don't hate them.
Spider-Man's, but I think
Oh,
that's about
I
it.
still like the Spider-Man movies a lot.
Yeah, I like Spider-Man. But I feel like I've only really seen Spider-Man. I think I saw the first, Iron Man. I haven't seen any after that.
Oh, the 2008. Yeah, I saw
How
2
many
Iron Man
have there been?
Iron Man movies or Marvel?
Iron Man.
I think there's only 3 Iron Man movies.
Oh, okay.
But then he starred in like the Avengers. He was,
I haven't seen any of the Avenger movies.
I think there's 4 Avengers movies. I've seen 3 of them. And 2 of them I saw because Joliet wanted to watch them.
Is that the one with the guy with the glove?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Is
like
it Thanos or something?
Yeah, like I said, it's like they're fun, well-made movies, but I just didn't get in. Like I didn't get heavily invested in them. Mm-hmm. So like I haven't. There's 4 Avengers movies. I've seen 3 out of the 4 of them.
Yeah.
And most people would be like, "Well, I got to see the one that
last
I
one.
missed," and I'm like, "I really don't care."
Yeah.
I've seen the last one. There's like one in the middle that I haven't seen,
Oh.
and I just never got around to watching it because it's probably like 3 hours long. I mean,
Oh yeah,
long.
that's also the other thing is like those movies are crazy long for no reason.
Yeah.
Do they really need to be that long? No, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, we're not here to talk about Marvel movies. We're here to talk about the 1985 cult classic, Return to Oz.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron, both of us have a pretty big background with this movie.
Huge
So,
backgrounds with this movie. This is something actually we bonded over when we first got together.
Yeah, we very quickly found out that we both love this movie.
Well, I found out that you saw it, and I was like, "What? You've seen that movie?" Because also the other thing is, I don't watch a lot of movies, but I watched this movie on repeat.
Well, you had it.
Yeah, I had it on. I think it was DVD at this point.
Oh, really?
And like, even it's just a burned in memory of just everything.
Tell
about
us
this
about
movie.
it. What's your background?
I mean, literally at Walmart. I was walking through Walmart and I saw the DVD cover for it, and it said Return to Oz, and I was like, Mom, get me this. I want this movie, because it had the Wizard of Oz. And I think, because I think I was like probably like 6 or 7. So like pretty young. And I think I had pretty recently watched The Wizard of Oz, and I was like, oh, I want to see the other one.
The other one.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know. I thought it was a sequel to it. I mean,
yeah.
it is a sequel.
Kind of.
Yeah. But I remember vividly like seeing the cover and just being like, oh, I have to watch this, because I really liked The Wizard of Oz. I still like The Wizard of Oz. Like, if you know anything about me and my oldest brother, Matt, we have...
I mean, it's one of the most important American
yeah, absolutely.
movies, you know?
But we have this connection to that film. I don't know what it is about it, but it's like there's this draw to it.
I think it's for people who are musical theater lovers. It's like it's a very early entry into musical theater, because
I would say this is probably the original Wizard of Oz was my first musical to ever see. Probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, for a lot of people who got into that to the whole Broadway thing, like that was probably one of their first musicals they ever saw.
So I mean, I brought it home, and I remember I would come home from pre-K, and because we would get off early. I was watching this in pre-K, and I would watch it daily. Every single day I'd come home and I'd be like, Mom, I want to watch Return to Oz.
Our daughter was like that with Frozen, by the way.
Oh my gosh, yeah. She loved that movie. But I watched this movie so much. It's like ingrained in my memory, like burned into my memory. And like I remember whenever I'd come home, my mom would usually like fix me a snack or something, because it was like probably around lunchtime when I would get home, because I would be...
It was back when pre-K was a half-day thing, right?
Yeah, it was a half day. So I would be in the morning. So I would go in the morning, and then I'd come back like around lunchtime. So my mom would make me lunch. And every time I would start the movie, I was like, Mom, you got to make me a ham sandwich so that I could eat the ham sandwich with her. Because she eats a ham sandwich in the movie.
Yeah, we'll get to it. It's real cute.
Yeah. There's all kind of little scenes that I would recreate, like just because when I would play pretend, instead of just playing pretend, I would recreate these scenes. The end scene where she like wakes up by the water, I would recreate that outside all the time. I would just like lay down. Goodbye. Bye. Like pretending like I'm like just returned from Oz. Yeah. So this movie is very important to me, and it's an integral part of my life.
Yeah.
What's your background?
Oh, my background is I was a kid, and my parents had another couple friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Were they in the neighborhood or something?
No, they didn't even live in the neighborhood. But they had known each other since college. Like they'd been hanging out, and then they both had children around the same time, and we would always have like a Super Bowl thing together. Mm-hmm. They would either come to our house or we would go to their house. Every time we went to their house, their kids had the VHS of Return to Oz, and we never heard of it. They're like, "You guys want to watch Return to Oz?" And we're like, okay, fine. And we sat down and watched it, and my sister and I just loved it.
Yeah.
We thought it was the coolest movie. And then every time we went over to their house after that, we're like, can we watch Return to Oz?
Yeah.
Because it's really great. It's got a lot of great elements for a kids movie.
Mm-hmm. And even watching it now, like as adults, and I know that we have a lot of nostalgia from watching it when we were little kids, but it's still like, it still holds up. Like it's still a really great movie.
Well, it's a Walt Disney movie, and this is 80s Disney. This is not current Disney where they have the deepest pockets in the world.
Yeah.
But back then they still had the ability to make super solid movies at low budgets. They have access to like all the best puppeteers and effects makers and set makers and
animatronics.
Yeah, and they went on like a nationwide search to find Dorothy.
Really?
Yeah, they auditioned
Was
like
this her
1,000 kids.
first? Was this her first production?
Sort of. It was her first major motion picture. She had been in some TV movies.
Okay.
Yeah, so she beat out like over 1,000 kids for this. But oh, man, I lost my train of thought. Well, anyway, back to my background. Like I remember when I was a kid.
Disney's budget for the film.
Yeah, well, I'll get to budget stuff. But when I was a kid, Wizard of Oz used to come on TV like once a year, maybe.
Yeah.
And
I remember watching it on TV too.
Yeah, it was a big television event, but I never really liked the movie that much. I'm not a song and dance man. Mm-hmm. I do, like, you've gotten me into Broadway stuff more because you've showed me, like, not everything is all show tunes and stuff like that. And so I appreciate it a lot more. But back then, I was just like, no, I don't really like watching the Tin Man jump around and sing a song. It's not for me. So when I saw the Return to Oz, I was like, oh, this is dark and it's scary. And
It is scary.
I love scary movies as long as I can remember. And I loved all those elements. I love that there was no singing or dancing. And still, like, all this time, I'd be like, I'd rather watch Return to Oz than Wizard of Oz.
I think I would too. I would too. I even though I love Wizard of Oz, I would still watch Wizard of Oz. But I think I would prefer to watch Return to Oz for sure. I think I watched it more. Even more than the Wizard of Oz. I think we also had Wizard of Oz on VHS too. And I believe it. I chose to watch Return to Oz. I can't remember if we had it on VHS though.
Yeah.
Matthew, please remind me if we had it on VHS. I wouldn't be surprised.
He's going to listen to this and have to travel back in time to let you know. All right. Okay, so let me get into how this movie got made. This was started in the early 80s, I think. But The Wizard of Oz was produced by MGM, which is a different film company from Walt Disney. So Disney bought up the remaining books because there's multiple Oz books.
Yes, there are lots of books.
Yeah.
And they even have other books that are literally just about, they've made different versions. So there's also, they've made other books like Wicked. The Wicked musical is based off of the book Wicked, which is about Elphaba and her backstory. And they've made...
When was the book Wicked made?
I don't remember.
Because I didn't see that on the list of books.
It's not an original.
Oh, okay.
It's not an original like Wizard of Oz book, but...
All right. Well, this movie is based off of one called Ozma of Oz and the... Oh, man, I can't find it. The Marvelous Land of Oz.
So the Wicked book was written in 1995.
Okay. All right. I don't want to get into all of that.
Okay.
But now I know. Okay. So these books came out in 1904 and 1907. So by the time the early 80s are rolling around, these books have been in public domain for a long time.
Yeah.
Or... No, I don't know. But anyway, they get the rights to make these, and then they're about to expire, so they decide to push one through. So that's how Return to Oz got made. It's like they wanted to use it before it expired. But if you ever watch this movie and you think to yourself, like, why is it so different from Wizard of Oz.
It's because it's actually based off of the books.
No. Well, that is partially it. But the thing is, MGM could sue Disney if it was too close to the original.
Oh, okay.
Right? So one thing that isn't in the books that was created by MGM was the ruby slippers.
Yeah.
In the book, they're crystal slippers. They had ruby slippers in this movie.
Yeah.
And they had to pay a huge fee to MGM to be able to use it.
Okay.
Right? So if they made this movie and it too closely resembled all of MGM stuff, MGM would have had a huge lawsuit on their hands.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the reasons it's so different. And they could use any elements of the book that they wanted because they own the rights to those books.
Yeah. And even at the end of the credits, it says it's based off of the Ozma book and then I think the Oz book.
Yeah, The Marvelous Land of Oz.
Marvelous Land of Oz, yeah.
I also found out that there's a book just about TikTok, and I want to read it, and I want there to be a movie made about TikTok. Nobody would go see that.
And there's a book of, is there one of Jack too?
I don't think so. You can look it up. Just look up a list of like Oz books, and I'll keep talking about the movie.
Okay.
But the budget for the movie was $28 million, which at the time was, I would say, like a mid-budget. They only spent about $6 million marketing it, which is not very much considering a $28 million budget, and it only made $11 million at the box office. So it tanked pretty hard. I think they didn't have any faith in it because it was so dark and didn't resemble the MGM movie, so they didn't even bother marketing it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is dark, but I feel like they could have marketed it and people would have wanted to go see it.
Yeah, I think if they had spent more money marketing it, they could have at least got,
a return on their investment.
yeah, a little bit of a return on their investment. I mean, after all, it's an Oz movie. It's based on one of the most famous movies ever made. But it received mixed reviews, and I want to say that's just because like everybody was expecting to get, bright and poppy song and dance type stuff.
Yeah.
But one person I do, where is that? Neil Gaiman. You know who Neil Gaiman is?
No.
He is a writer, but he wrote like Coraline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He said that the movie is terrifying and visionary, funny and exciting. Return to Oz is one of the very best fantasy films I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
So
I agree with that.
There's people out there who like this movie and people who are in that world and say it's good. And that makes me feel better about it. Because I really love this movie. But there's a lot of people who didn't care for it. And also, Tim Burton has acknowledged that Jack Pumpkinhead is the inspiration for Jack Skellington.
He what?
He acknowledged that character, Jack,
really?
was the inspiration for Jack Skellington.
Okay.
Which, you see it, it's there.
Yeah, it's definitely prevalent. Because when did I wonder when Nightmare Before Christmas came out?
1994 or 5,
okay, yeah,
I believe.
Definitely.
Did you find the list of Oz books?
Yes, I did. So, The List of Oz. First book.
Oh my God, there's a lot.
There's 14.
Wow.
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Then we have The Marvelous Land of Oz. Ozma of Oz, which is the third one. Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Number 5 is The Road to Oz. There's a Shaggy Man. I don't know what that really means.
Emerald
City of Oz. Aunt Em and Uncle Henry come to live in Oz permanently.
Oh my God.
Patchwork Girl of Oz. Tik-tok of Oz is the 8th book. The Scarecrow of Oz is the 9th. Rinky Tink in Oz. Don't really know what that's about. The Lost Princess of Oz. Ozma disappears. There is the Tin Woodsman of Oz.
That's the Tin Man. He's actually called the Tin Woodsman in the book.
Yeah. The Magic of Oz. and then Glinda of Oz. Glinda.
So I guess there was no TikTok book.
Yeah, there was. I told you.
What?
It's the 8th book, Tik-tok of Oz.
Oh, okay. I don't know how I missed that. Okay. So anything else that you want to say about the movie, just generally?
So this movie has a lot of really great one-liners. And I literally have lists of the best lines in this movie because they're so funny. There's a lot of puppetry in this movie, and like the effects in this movie are really fantastic.
Yeah.
You said it was in 85?
85, yeah.
So there's no special, there's special effects, but there's no
There is
CGI.
There is no zero computer generation in this movie.
So
There is some green screen, but it's not.
it's actually, it looks really good.
Well, yeah, because back then, green screen has been around for decades.
Mm-hmm.
But when they used to do it, they had to project film on there or animation. They didn't have computer. Now they use green screen because they're going to make.
They're going to put a computer behind it.
Yeah, like a whole computer generated background on it. Back then, you had to either take something that you've already filmed or already animated and project it on the green part.
So that's what they did?
Yeah, that's what they did.
Okay.
So when she's falling through the rocks and you see all those rock formations, they were probably using stock footage of rock crystallization or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was zero computer generation in 1985.
Yeah. And when they're flying through the sky, it looks really great. And they also the way that they shot the couch, the Gump. It's shot from an angle to where it's you see the sky moving in the background, and there's fog going in front of them, so it looks like they're going through the clouds. So it doesn't look like there's a screen behind them. It's done really, really well.
Yeah.
All of their effects are fantastic. The puppetry, for Billina, the chicken. So the chicken talks. So it's not just a regular fucking chicken. It's an actual puppet.
But they did use some real chickens.
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah. You could definitely tell
Yeah.
that there's a real chicken
It's
on
hard
set.
to tell the difference, though. It's hard to tell.
Exactly.
when.
That's that the chicken is so the chicken puppet is so fantastic. It looks just like a chicken.
Yeah.
There was a one point where you paused it, and I think you were trying to see where's the what is the puppet?
I did. I rewound it because I was was that a real chicken or not?
Yeah, it's the puppetry in this is fantastic. Not even the puppet work, but the actual puppet looks fantastic in this.
Yeah, and the
Because
sets.
sometimes you see movies in the 80s and they have puppets, and you're like, what the fuck is that puppet?
Yeah, I know.
But these puppets are so good.
Yeah, they didn't overuse puppets. Something I don't a lot about Jim Henson stuff like Labyrinth. There's so many puppets.
It's all puppets.
Yeah, with this
Except
one,
3 characters.
they have some animatronic puppets, and I think there's a real person inside TikTok.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Or at least at some points there was a real person inside
yeah, there's
TikTok.
definitely a real person inside Jack at some points.
Yeah, when he's all put together and walking around, that's definitely a real person.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say the sets are amazing too.
The sets are so beautiful.
Yeah. They spent a lot of time working on those sets for sure.
There are some parts where it's because it's supposed to be 6 months out away from or after the tornado.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because time is different in Oz, but it is way overgrown.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because whenever she finds her house, it's there's trees everywhere. And you're wait, that doesn't look anything like Munchkin Land.
No.
Because that's where she lands. She lands in Munchkin
Yeah,
Land.
that's right. Yeah, I didn't think about any of this though.
Yeah, but every time I've seen that, I'm she looks like she's in the woods behind my house. Because I was little, and the woods up behind my house looked very similar to that.
Yeah, well, maybe they didn't have the money to build Munchkin Land, so they're just well, got to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad, but
No, it definitely doesn't look bad.
Definitely seems what is this place? Because it's not Oz. But I mean, they could have added like some like colorful pieces that like look dingy. I don't know, something to make it look more.
I mean, yeah, of course they could have.
Yeah.
I read a lot when I was doing research for this was saying like, oh, they were going to do this, but they ran into budget constraints.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because $28 million, it's a good amount of money in 1985, but not an extravagant amount of money,
Yeah.
I would say. All right, so you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. So the movie starts, and Dorothy is trying to go to sleep. She's staring through the hole that's in her ceiling because her house has not been finished yet.
Yeah, they're working on building a new house after that other house blew away by the tornado.
Yes. And then Auntie M comes in there, and she's like, what's wrong? Can't you sleep?
And she tells her it's been 6 months
Yeah.
since the tornado. And
That's how we figure out how much time has passed since the last movie. And she's like, look, you gotta forget about Oz or something like that. Does she say that her friends in Oz are in trouble already?
No, not yet. It's she I don't know. I can't remember like exactly the very beginning part where, because I know she like looks up and she sees a shooting star, and then it goes to the next morning and her aunt is like milking a cow. She's doing some farm work.
Right.
And then she goes to the chicken coop and she says like, oh, Billina, you haven't laid any eggs. Let's see if you've laid any. And she's looking around. She's like, Billina, Aunt Em says that if you don't lay any eggs, you're going to be, she's going to cook you up for supper.
Yeah. And this is kind of, I guess it's not really foreshadowing, but kind of in a way, they want you to know that Billina doesn't lay eggs.
Yes.
Right. And chicken, like, you know a little bit more about chickens than I do, but they at some point they do stop laying eggs, right?
I have no idea.
I think they have to at some point, or at least the eggs they're laying aren't good.
Maybe, I don't know. That's what I would guess, because I know that women, like humans, we have a certain amount of eggs.
Yeah.
And then once they're gone, they're gone. Like, this is crazy. You ready to hear this?
Sure.
I was in my grandmother's uterus.
Uh-huh.
My egg that my mom had in her body was in my grandmother's uterus.
Oh, because your eggs developed as
whenever you're developing a child, you develop your eggs in womb.
Wow.
So I had Joliet's grandchildren, if she has any, who knows?
Oh my God.
Were in me.
Motherhood is insane, guys.
I know. Joliet was in my mother's womb.
That's kind of beautiful in a way.
I know. But so I guess maybe that might be how chickens work. I'm not really sure. I didn't grow up around chickens. My parents didn't get chickens till after I left home.
Okay, well, I think I just defer to you because I feel like you
because
would
I'm
know.
from the country.
But the thing I think is at some point hens have got to stop laying eggs, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's at which point you go, okay, well now we're going to cook them,
Yeah.
right? Because we're not just going to throw that meat away.
Yeah.
But also we see Uncle, I don't remember his name, Uncle
Henry.
Uncle Henry is looking at an ad in the paper for electric healing. And he's like, look, we can't afford this.
I've never noticed that.
I know this is the first time I've noticed it too. And he's like, we can't afford this. And it's like, it's okay. We borrowed money, but we need to do this because she's not sleeping or whatever. Yeah.
So, but Dorothy, when she's out there with Billina starts pecking at something and it's a key.
Right.
And it says Oz on it. And so she's like, oh, this was the shooting star. They sent me this key. And so she runs to Aunt Em, and then this is when she tells her, like, Aunt Em, look, I got this key. It says Oz on it. And she's like, Dorothy, you've got to stop thinking about Oz. What have we talked about?
And she says it's not real, and this is essentially why you're having so much trouble. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they leave in a horse and carriage.
Yeah. So, yeah. When do they talk about the electrical thing?
Oh, it's right after she's having trouble sleeping. It's still at night. It's not even the next day yet.
Okay. Because she finds it the next day, so...
Yeah, she finds it the next day, and then they go off in the horse and carriage. They have to go a town over.
Several towns over.
Yeah.
Because they're riding through...
They ride through they live in Franklin, I guess. And
Yeah,
she's like,
she goes, I've never been past Franklin.
yeah, maybe that's another town. I don't know. They don't really give it too much information.
Detailed.
And Toto runs after her, but eventually he has to stop and go back home.
Mm-hmm. But they make it to this this hospital. I mean, it looks like a house, but
it is. It's like a Victorian looking house.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of creepy and cool. Kind of looks like
it does look cool.
The Psycho House a little bit to me.
But they go inside and she's talking to this doctor, and I don't know if you know, the doctor is the Gnome King.
Yes.
Okay.
So this movie, if you watch The Wizard of Oz, at the characters that show up in the beginning play characters in Oz.
Yes.
And then one of the things I don't like about Wizard of Oz is at the end it's so ham-fisted where she's like,
and you were there,
and you were there.
Yeah.
It's like, we didn't need that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this movie does it more subtly because every time I watch this movie, I'll notice some like, oh, that character played this person, and that, yeah, they don't smack you in the face with it.
Mm-hmm. But
she's telling the doctor about like all about Oz and what happened there,
mm-hmm.
and he's asking her questions about it.
Yeah. So she kind of tells him like, oh, well, this is Oz. And he goes, well, you had ruby red slippers and where are they at? And she's like, well, I lost them. And so he's like, well, we're going to do shock therapy on you. He doesn't tell her that though. So Dorothy has no clue what's happening, but he does say like, well, we're in a new age. In 6 months, it will be the year 1900.
You see, Dorothy, several years ago, people would have just put leeches all over you. But we have this new thing where we're going to use a machine to shock your brain.
Yeah. And he turns on a lamp to like the age of electricity. And he turns on a lamp and everyone's like, oh
right.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
You know, you take electricity for granted, but you got to realize during this time, electricity was new.
Yeah.
Most houses didn't have it yet.
Mm-hmm. I bet Aunt Em doesn't have electricity.
No, I doubt it.
So they're kind of talking about the machine, and just kind of getting her familiar with it. And then she is, I guess, institutionalized? No.
No, well, he pulls out the machine and he's like, look at the machine. Look, it's got a face. Here are the eyes. And there's like dials and little gauges that look like eyes. And he's like, well, what's this, Dorothy? And he's like, it's his tongue. And it's this weird lobe that moves back and forth. But the machine is scary. Like if you pull that out. It looks
super spooky.
And you're like, if I was a little kid and they pull that out and they're like, we're going to use this on you, I'd be like, get the fuck away from me.
For real. Yeah. But they
Aunt Em is like, look, I've got to go and I've got to leave you here.
Yeah. So she says like, listen to the nurse, listen to the doctor. They're going to take care of you and I'll be back. And so you see her, they put her up in her room. And the nurse is very cold.
Yes. And she's wearing a dark black dress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you can hear like all of these like kind of murmurs around the hospital. But you see like you hear like the little clip claps of the horse carriage pulling away. And she turns around and there's this little girl in her room. Because they just...
there's an orderly too that helps her to the room. And he pushes like a little cart, remember? Mm-hmm. But he's going to show up in Oz.
Well, that's later.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, not yet. So like after the horse and carriage go away, then she sees Ozma and then she gives her a pumpkin. She's like, it's almost Halloween.
Yeah, Ozma, well, you just think it's a little girl. It's like a little blonde girl. who's there, who's also institutionalized, but she shows up in a room without even opening the door. So you're like, what the hell is this?
How the fuck did she get in there?
Yeah, but she's friendly, and she gives her a pumpkin. Mm-hmm. And
I love that
friends.
Dorothy brushes its hair, even though it has no hair. But
all right, Feruza, now we need you to get a little action with the pumpkin. Like, why don't you try brushing its hair? It's like, but it doesn't have hair. I was like, just do it.
Yeah.
We're making a movie here.
So then this is when the nurse comes back with the two guys, the two orderlies. And they're like, okay, well, I need you to hop up on this bed. And she goes, okay, well, that's fine. And then they tie her down. And she's like, why do I need to be tied down? And she goes, so you don't fall off.
Yeah.
But I rode here on a buggy without falling off.
Yeah. And they're trying to show that, like, Dorothy's a little bit precocious and, like, answers back to authority, you know.
Yeah. She's weary of what's going on.
Yeah. She's also wary of it, too.
And the...
No, I think the word is wary.
Weary.
Weary is when you're tired. Wary is when you're...
Okay. Well, teach me English. So she's...
Watch, I'm getting that backwards, and now I look like an idiot.
You're probably right. But she's laying on this cart, and...
They pull out the machine.
Well, they're taking her down the hall, and you hear of the wheels.
Right.
So it's this eerie feeling. She sees these lights going over her. It's very spooky feeling. And then she goes into the room where the doctor is with the machine. And he puts these headphones on her, and she's like, what are these? Like, what is this? And he goes, this is what's going to make you feel better. And
all during this, there's a storm rolling in. You
Yes.
can hear like a storm happening.
And before he puts the headphones on her, the nurse is holding the headphones kind of close to each other, and you can hear the electrical current kind of running through them.
But then the lights go out.
Well, they put it on her, and they're about to... like he's changing knobs. He's like, we're ready to go. And then he's about to turn it on, and then the lights go out. And they're like, oh, shit. Well, we got to go figure out what to do about this.
And that's when Ozma comes in and frees her.
Yes. So it goes pitch black, and then the lights come back on, and she just feels someone take the headphones off of her head because she can't see anyone because she's tied down to the bed. And she's like, what are you doing? And she's like, we got to get you out of here. And so she helps her escape.
Yeah, and they run out of the house and down.
This movie is fast paced, which I love.
Yeah,
in the beginning,
it doesn't let up. There is not a lull in the action ever. Mm-hmm. It's constantly introducing new information, moving forward, which is good. Keeps you interested, especially if you're a kid. Mm-hmm. But they run, and like it's raining and storming, so they fall into a creek.
Yeah,
and get washed away, and
the nurse is chasing them.
Yeah, the nurse is chasing them. But after she climbs into some wooden thing that's floating.
It looks like
on
a
the river.
crib.
Yeah, and she loses Ozma at some point.
Because they try to climb on something to float, but then it sinks, and then something kind of lifts up, and she climbs in it. She like breaks the bars out, and looks like a crib.
Yeah. So then she falls asleep in the crib or whatever it is, and she wakes up in Oz.
Yeah, she wakes up to hearing Billina's.
Yeah, because suddenly Billina's there for some reason.
Yeah.
And they don't explain how Ozma can come to this land even though she's supposed to be imprisoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff you have to take for granted in this movie, but I don't think it ruins the movie at all. And then she's like, okay, I know where we're at. We are...
we're in Oz over the deadly desert.
Yeah, we're at the deadly desert. And also we find out that Billina can talk.
Yeah.
My notes app kept correcting Billina to billions. So it's like billions
and
talk.
billions.
So my notes are like, billions talks now. Billions puppet.
Billina
Billions laid egg.
Billions had some of the best lines.
Billions was so
Billina-
sassy. Yeah.
Billina is such a sassy chicken. It's so funny.
Yeah. She's kind of present because she doesn't lay eggs.
Yeah.
You think like, oh, well, she must be a little older, so she's like a middle-aged chicken who's just like, man, what's all this?
Yeah.
You know, she's kind of like that Kristen Wiig character, Aunt Linda.
Oh yeah, she is.
Not this time, Depp.
But she's got some really fantastic lines. But they were climbing over rocks, and you see this like face like form into one of the rocks, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?" Or like, you don't know what it is. And then you see the face like go away, and they jump onto the grass. But then it cuts to.
Well, here, let's like they're in the deadly desert. If you step in the sand in the deadly desert, you turn to sand.
All living things will turn to sand. So
Right,
if
all
like
living
you're
things.
on something, you're fine. But if you yourself touch the sand,
So they step on rocks to get to the grass where there is no longer the deadly desert. And these faces appear on the rock. They look menacing too, but they're spying essentially.
yeah. And then we see those faces go into this like dark place where it starts talking to someone. You don't see the other person, but you just see that face saying, "There's this person here. Okay, well, you need to follow them," or something like that. And then it says, "Well, they also brought a chicken." And then the voice in the background says, "A chicken?"
And it sounds like Darth Vader. It sounds
does
like
kinda
it
sound like
sounds
Darth
like
Vader.
James Earl. I looked it up, but it's not. But the voice sounds a lot like James Earl Jones. I think they were like they borrowed a lot from Star Wars in this movie.
But they so you're kind of like curious, like, why is he so mad about chicken? But then we cut to them. They're walking in like by the trees just after they cross the deadly desert, and this is the lunch pail scene, which is
Okay. But before we get to that, I just want to say, so whenever they do a wide shot in this movie of like the deadly desert or you see Emerald City in the background, it's what they call a matte painting.
okay.
So they would get an artist to paint a big mural of what they wanted to see, and then they would composite it. You know when you used to make collage when you were a kid and you would
Yeah.
cut out like a person in a magazine and paste it
Yeah,
on something
and they would
else?
give it depth.
Yeah, but it's just you cut the film out, right? And then you put it on the matte painting, right? And I think you film the matte painting separately. Or no, you would just take a picture of it and just double the picture. But so they're essentially cutting out one piece of film and putting it over another piece of film.
Yeah.
And that's how you get that deep depth.
Oh, okay.
And if you look really carefully at it, it looks like somebody painted it. But now they would just use green screen for that. And it would
Yeah.
just be a computer-generated background. And I like the matte painting a lot better.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, it looks good. And they use a lot of matte paintings in this. So be on the lookout for that.
So this is the lunch pail scene. So she goes to this tree and it looks like apples, but she goes, "This is a lunch pail tree." She goes, "We should grab some lunch." This scene is my favorite.
You got to talk into the microphone.
I'm sorry. This scene was really important to me when I was growing up. I don't know why, but it just stuck
Well,
with me.
you were interacting with the film.
Yeah. So this is the scene where she she looks around, she grabs two lunch pails. She goes, "One for now and one for later." So she's bringing this pail around. So that's going to come back later.
And all of this also illustrates like, okay, this is not her first rodeo. She knows.
She knows things are wrong.
Yeah, she knows what the deadly desert is. She knows that you can pick a lunch pail off a tree.
And she goes, "Billina, come have some lunch with me." And then Billina, this is one of her good lines. She goes, in a minute, I've got a nice couple of worms here." And then she goes, "Ooh, I got something and a ham sandwich." And she goes, "Good thing it's not fried chicken." So, two good lines in this lunch pail scene.
Yeah, I remember as a kid really thinking the lunch pail tree was like the coolest thing ever.
It
You
was
just,
cool.
Just go pick a lunch. I loved turkey sandwiches when I was a kid. Just like bread, mayonnaise, and turkey.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Same.
a slice of cheese.
Yeah, same. So after this, maybe this is when the Gnome King thing happens.
Yeah, this is when the Gnome King thing happens. He sees them eat, the little spy sees them eating lunch, and he goes and tells them, like, Dorothy Gale's back, and she's
she
got
brought
a
a chicken.
chicken. And he goes, a chicken? Yeah. So then they go walking through the woods, and they find the old house that got scooped up by the tornado. And suddenly Munchkinland isn't around.
Yeah.
We can just assume maybe that one of the wicked witches like killed all the Munchkins.
I guess.
There's not a single little person in this movie.
No, there's
that I
not.
noticed. They got wiped off.
But they also like there's nothing that's reminiscent of Munchkinland at all either.
No.
So you see this house in the woods and you're like, what the fuck is that?
But then again, this was not made as a direct sequel.
Yeah.
The director said it. So maybe in the books there was no Munchkinland. Maybe the house just landed in the woods.
Maybe.
And there was a brick road there, so she followed it. We'll have to read the books to find out. But also, that area is really overgrown, and the yellow brick road is all messed up.
Yeah, it's like it looks like a mole went through the middle of it, like a huge mole.
Or Bugs Bunny on his way to Albuquerque.
Kind of
whatever.
tunneled underneath the yellow brick road. So it's all exploded. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good.
It looks like it exploded all over the place.
Like a lot of grass has grown through the brick, so it's in disrepair.
Yeah. And so she looks at it and she goes, "What?" And Billina's like, "Well, what? It's just a yellow brick." And she goes, "This used to be the yellow brick road. This leads to Oz, or to the Emerald City." And so she starts running. And so Billina starts running after her. Wait. And so she gets to the Emerald City.
Which is another matte painting.
Yeah. And there's no glow to the Emerald City anymore.
No, it's completely dull. It looks all stone, and she's finding statues everywhere. And she's like, "What's the deal with these statues?"
She sees the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man as a statue.
Yeah. And then she also finds like a bunch of women who have no heads.
Yes.
And that's when the Wheelers show up.
Yeah, this is when the Wheelers pop up. So these guys that have wheels for hands and feet are kind of rolling around.
You know what I used to do when I was a kid?
What?
My sister and I both had roller skates.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I would put one on my feet, one on my hands, and I go around like, I'm a wheeler.
So she's kind of like rolling. They're kind of rolling around, chasing her. I don't remember what.
They corner her in some place, and doesn't she use a key?
Yes. So they corner her down this little aisle, and she still has the lunch pail. And Billina sees like this hole, and she goes, "Look, Dorothy, use the key." And so she uses that key that she was given.
Right. Yeah.
Back at home. So she unlocks it and she goes into the room.
This has a very video gamey feel to it, like
yeah,
in
secret
Zelda.
doors.
In Zelda, you'll find a key, and then later you use the key.
And so they turn around and they see Tik-tok.
Yes. And he's just standing there because nobody's winded him up in years.
But before they see Tik-tok, the Wheelers say like, well, you'll have to come out at some point and we'll get you, and we'll bring you to Mombi. And so they're kind of like hinting like they're not good guys.
They're very clearly henchmen. Yeah. And there's another mention of a chicken, but I forget in what context. The Wheelers are like, does she have a chicken or something?
Well, I think they know they have a chicken.
No. Well,
I can't remember what they say about it.
Anyway, they...
But there is one point where Billina says, "Baka, a Wheeler!" I don't know if it's before or after TikTok, because I just put it in a Billina's best line section.
Okay.
But they go to TikTok and they read and they see like, oh, he's an army for the Oz, and they have to like wind him up. I love.
Yeah, it said there's a little plate on the back, and she reads it, and it says it does everything but live.
Yeah, it does everything but live.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of like a through line through the whole the rest of the movie. He even like says like a point of pride is that I never live.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
my lifelessness is a point of pride. Something like that. It's really cute.
No, he says I've always valued my lifelessness.
Yes, that's it. But
I also want you to think about like this character was written back decades before a computer would ever exist. So it's so cool to think about like there's this soldier that you have to wind up like a wind up toy.
Yeah.
And he is like, I am lifeless. You know,
Yeah.
like it's such an awesome creation, I think.
But I love one of the other things that was kind of my memories is when she's winding him up, the way that the cobwebs kind of wrap around the little wind up. I don't know why that's so.
You just like it's just fun to have details.
Yeah,
in
those
a movie
there's
like that.
so many details in this
Yes.
that are so interesting. I think that's what makes this movie so dynamic and so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, because like seeing like the cobwebs spinning around and like all of the detail work is really fantastic.
Yeah, if this movie was made by a lesser studio, like this was made by Walt Disney, Disney knows that those little things matter.
Yes.
If this was made by Canon Films, they wouldn't care about any of that stuff. They'd be like, this guy's totally a robot. You know,
Yeah.
like who cares how he works? He's a robot. Kids are going to like robots.
Yeah.
But it's the tactility of it that
Yes.
you really, TikTok was my favorite character when I was a
Oh
kid.
yeah, he's definitely one of mine too.
Yeah, well, he reminded me of my grandfather. Because
Aww.
no, don't awe that.
Okay.
But it was just because my grandfather was in the army.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, oh, it's like grandpa. I did not have a close relationship with my grandfather. Yeah, so I just thought it was cool to have this soldier in there. And he looks like a World War I or World War
Yeah,
II
with the
soldier.
mustache and everything.
Yeah, and then, of course, I had tons of those little wind-up toys when I was a kid, too. So it's just
The
everything about it.
Yeah. The other thing about him being a wind up is that he has 3 wind ups. He has his speech, he has his thinking, and he has action. So
good.
I know. So sometimes his action will wind down, but he can still think and talk, or his thinking will run down, but he can still move and talk. Or so like it's really interesting. Like it makes him more dynamic as well.
Yeah, because it adds plot points to it. So if you just had this character in a movie and he was a robot and you had a run button and a stop button,
Yeah.
right? But because he's wind up, he's a ticking time bomb. Like he
Yeah.
can just stop working, and then suddenly now you don't have TikTok to defend people or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
it's a plot point throughout the movie that like, oh, his thinking ran down.
Yeah.
So now we're screwed or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really smart writing. So
They find TikTok in the hidden tunnel, and she winds him up, and he goes, okay, well, I have a plan. So they open the door and they start going out, and the Wheelers come after them. This might be when Billina says that "baka" a Wheeler line.
yeah, I think it is.
And so he takes the lunch pail that she has, and he just starts spinning in a circle, and he starts hitting all of the Wheelers.
Yeah.
And he goes, Dorothy, run up the stairs. And so she starts running up, but then there's more Wheelers up there. And all of this, like he's such a fantastic character.
Yeah, and he's all like you find out like right away that he's a strategist.
Yes.
He's always coming up with strategies to, beat people or whatever. And he grabs one of the Wheelers and he starts like interrogating him.
Yes. So he's like, where is the Scarecrow? And he goes, the Gnome King has him. And then he starts saying like, well, you have to go talk to Mumby. And he goes, okay, take us to Mumby. He's like, no, I don't want to. So you can tell that they're scared of Mumby as well.
Yeah. So then they go and they travel to Mumby's house. Mm-hmm. And they just let themselves in, I think.
Yeah, well, because they knock and then you can hear very faint music. I'm sorry, I bit my tongue. Very faint music going on, and then
yeah, they walk in there.
Yeah, she just walks in because it's unlocked. So she walks in, and then you see Mumby playing a mandolin.
Yeah, and it's like this attractive woman.
Is that what it's called?
It's a small stringed instrument. I don't know if it's a mandolin, but it's probably not a real instrument. It's probably something that only exists in Oz. But anyway, it's like a very attractive, like angelic looking woman with
it's
like
a
blonde
mandolin.
hair. And she's like, "Oh, are you Mombi?" And she's like, "Yes, I am." I don't remember exactly what they say.
Well, she says, "Come with me. Let me find something more comfortable."
Yeah, and when they find her, they're in this really cool looking room with all these mirrors and white columns and like
it's
chandeliers. It's
really beautiful.
Yeah, whoever built the set did an amazing job. And there's so many mirrors on it. Like I was looking around to see if there were like little glimpses of the crew in the background because it's really hard to shoot mirrors.
Yeah,
because they reflect you. You know, you can look up. There's tons of pictures online of like people trying to take pictures of their mirrors. And
and they're just like pictures of themselves.
Yeah,
in the mirror.
Yeah. So I don't know how they did that. A lot of know-how. But anyway, they go into the room with all the heads, right? And she changes heads.
Yes. And this is something we kind of talked about a little bit earlier is I wish Mumby had more moments of the different heads so we could have seen their personalities. Because the first head she has on is very soft and gentle and like, oh, well, let me take you to my head so I can get more comfortable. And then she puts this other head on and they're a little bit more stern. But not like evil or mean or anything. But I also feel like this head looked too much like her actual head.
Yeah. I don't know.
Also, I feel like Aunt Em is one of the heads. I feel like she's the first head, but I can't remember.
I think so.
I couldn't tell if it was her or not.
No, I think the first head was too young.
You think that, but also Aunt Em looks real young.
Well, yeah. I mean, she definitely doesn't look old.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was a cool thing. Like, she's got like 30 heads.
31 because her original head, and then she has 30 other heads.
Like she said, like we said, she's the Baskin Robbins of head collectors or whatever.
Yeah.
But it would have been cool to see like different personalities when she puts the head on. Yeah. And there's another little interesting tidbit we get to pretty soon that I'll talk about. But I also thought it was cool. Like, there's a part where she takes the new head and she's holding it by her hip.
Yeah.
And the head is talking. And now that was a green screen thing too. You can tell they probably made that actor put on a green suit. And then that way they could just project the film on top of it. So it just looks like a head. But it looked good.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
And then she's like, you're Dorothy Gale. She figures out who she is. And she's like, oh, I'm going to lock you in the tower and then I'm going to eat your chicken or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to eat your chicken. I'm going to make fried chicken.
Yeah. And then Tik-tok is like, I will help you, Dorothy.
And then he freezes.
His action runs down.
Yes.
So this is what we were talking about a minute ago is like, you don't always want Dorothy to be defended, right? Because it ups the stakes of the movie. So you have this character whose action runs down when you need her to be in peril, right? So it's smart.
Yeah, and even the lines. So she's being pulled away, and it shows like Dorothy is such a sweet kid. She's being pulled away, and Tik-tok goes, "The fighting the Wheelers must have run my action down faster." And she goes. She says something to the effect of like, that's very likely. While she's being pulled away to potentially have her head chopped off later on.
Yeah.
Because when she has the new head on, she's looking at Dorothy and she's like, you're very pretty. You would definitely be a nice head to have. So she wants to have her head when she's older.
Right.
That's why she's putting her up in the tower.
Yeah, she wants her to grow older because she doesn't want to have a little kid head. Right. So she shows them up in the tower, and Billina's with her, and they're finding like paintings of the scarecrow and the lion and stuff up there. Does Billina have any good one-liners up there?
A man? Is that a man or a melon? So,
They find Jack up
yeah. So the Jack is one of the characters she finds upstairs in the tower, and she kind of like she walks around, and then Jack is like, "Mom, is that you, Mom?" Because Jack is confused. He doesn't know who his mom. He knows his mom, but he doesn't know who his mom what his mom looks like. He just knows that someone created him. That's roughly the same age as Dorothy, and he asks her if she's his mom, and she says, "No, I'm not your mom." And this is when Billina says, "Was that a man or is that a melon?"
Yeah, and we
fun line.
find out that he was made by Ozma, by his mother, to scare Mombi. And it worked at first, but then when Mombi finds out that it was just a scarecrow or a fake man, she put it up there, and somehow he got like the powder of life scattered on him.
Yeah, so that's how he Ozma is his mother. Ozma put him up in front of the palace or castle or palace to deter or to prevent Mombi from coming to scare her away, which he said she did. It did. But then Mombi, but she used this powder of life on him.
Oh, okay.
And so something happened, and I guess she got angry and she did something. She like broke his legs or something. And so she was able to take him upstairs and put him in the...
And he says, like, she put me up here, but she was wearing head 22 when she did, and must have not have worn it since because she forgot that he's up there.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a fun way to bring back the whole head mythology there.
Yeah. But he says that there's more of this powder, but she keeps it in her original head's cabinet.
Head 33 or 31?
31.
Oh, 31, okay.
31 is her head,
Okay.
her original head.
And then so they sneak downstairs. Jack can put his hand out the door because he's got really long arms.
Long, skinny arms.
Yeah, long, skinny arms. So he reaches outside the door and unlocks it. And then they go down and they find Tik-tok down there.
And this is when Jack is like, he keeps trying to talk to her, and she's like, "You need to be quiet." But he's like, "Will you be my mom?"
Or he says, "No." Can I call you mom even if you're not?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And she goes,
like,
"Yeah."
Yeah.
She just nods her head, and he goes, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah.
He's such a sweet character.
Yeah, he is a
I think
really
he's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
sweet.
like all the characters.
Oh
in
yeah,
that movie.
definitely.
I mean, I'm just saying Tik-tok was my favorite when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I like them all.
So they get to Tik-tok, and she goes, "Tik-tok, I'm going to talk to you, but don't say anything if you're listening." So she's like, "I'm going to wind you up, and then you're going to go upstairs, and you're going to help Jack create something to get us out of here."
Yeah.
So she winds up Tik-tok, and they start climbing the stairs. I love the way Tik-tok climbs stairs.
Yeah.
It's super cute.
I read that it was some guy who was walking on his hands. doing
Really?
that. Yeah. So he was like upside down in that suit walking on his hands.
Huh. Or maybe he was just like his feet were on the stairs underneath him, and he was just the top part of him was using.
I don't know. It's hard to tell because the shape of him is so strange. You could be like, well, maybe there's somebody in there, but also maybe there's animatronics in there. I don't know. I can't make heads or tail of Tik-tok.
Yeah, it's a really cool character.
Yeah. And Jack is like, "Do you get the plan?" He's like, "Yes, I understand it better than you do."
Yeah, which is a funny line. There's so many funny, cute lines in this movie.
Yeah.
But this is when Dorothy goes into Mombi's room to steal the key, to steal her ruby key.
Yeah,
to her
because
cabinets.
the ruby key will open the cabinet to get the powder of life.
So I loved this. I also recreated this scene with the ribbon thing.
Untying the ribbon from her
Yeah.
hand.
So,
And also, Mombi sleeps without a head.
yes, which is super creepy.
Yeah, it's
and I
super
love.
creepy, yeah.
But she has pillows.
Yeah.
What do you need a pillow for? But she unties and she snores too, with no head.
That's right.
So she's like untying so gently this ribbon away from her wrist, and she gets the key and she goes into the cabinet, and she's about to grab the powder of life, and you can see that the original head is the nurse's head.
Right, yeah.
And she has this like crazy makeup on. She
And also
looks
the
super
head
spooky.
the head wheeler was the orderly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she is going to grab the powder and she knocks over a little vial, and this Dorothy girl.
And then all the heads start saying Dorothy.
No, they
Gale.
start screaming.
Yeah. Well, they say it too, don't they?
No, they
Oh,
scream.
okay.
But that head is like yelling at the body to come get her.
Yeah. So then you see the the body get out of bed, and it's very clearly somebody who's got a costume that's
Yeah.
over their head, but it looks good.
It's
I like
fun.
it. It's a lot of fun.
And so she grabs the powder and the head bites at her.
Yeah.
Just everything about this movie is so fantastic.
Yeah. The little details are all good.
Yeah. So she runs upstairs, and then she, while she's down there, TikTok they're putting all these pieces together to make a flying contraption, and they're going to bring it to life.
Yeah.
And so they have this Gump head, and they put it on two sofas to tie together.
A Gump is what looks like a moose in Oz.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's green, though.
Yeah, it's green. And it talks like Sam Elliott. Beef is what's for dinner.
I get, yeah. And
Or
so,
as you know him, the guy from Roadhouse.
yeah, the older guy from
Hey,
Roadhouse.
mijo.
Yeah. So they like tie these things together, but TikTok,
Well, first
his-
Jack like ties his feet together.
well, TikTok runs out of his thinking, and he goes, "Well, next we're gonna tie Jack's feet together," and then
Oh, right,
that's what. And Jack goes, "Okay, tie my feet together." So it shows like Jack is really not smart, but it's
Yeah.
so cute.
Yeah, TikTok makes a joke about it later in the movie that we'll get to. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
So, and TikTok starts just like saying gibberish now.
Yeah. Because he's not wound tightly enough. So, yeah. So then Dorothy runs up there and is like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, TikTok's acting crazy," and TikTok is going, "Tickle me."
Tickle me, tickle me.
Yeah.
It was really funny. And so she winds up his thinking, and he's like, "Oh my gosh." And she was like, "This needs to be done now." She goes, "TikTok, watch the door, watch for Mumby," because she locked the cabinet, so the body hasn't gotten the head yet. So the body, I guess, can't see
Yeah.
to come get her. And so they're upstairs, and she's sprinkling this powder all over everything, and the Gump comes to life.
Yeah,
And
but this all creates a lot of suspense because she's eventually going to get up there.
Yeah.
And they've got this like rickety, like it's two couches and a moose head, and then like
Tied together.
yeah, and then for its wings, that's like fern leaves.
Yeah, and they're tied together badly because TikTok, his thinking ran out. So
and they just didn't have a lot of time.
yeah. So she's coming up because she breaks the mirror to get her head out.
Oh, something we skipped over is when Dorothy is trying to escape Mombi after she first wakes up, she sees Ozma in one of the mirrors.
Oh, she does. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
and
running
she-
with the powder.
Yeah, and she's like, "Go this way," and she shows her a secret passage so she
Well,
can
she's-
get up there faster.
She's trying to. Everything's mirrors, so you can't really tell. It's kind of like a fun house.
Yeah, but I think that mirror opens. It was like a secret passageway.
Well, so she goes up to one mirror and she's trying to open it, but it's not the right door.
Oh, okay.
And then she sees the green in that other one, and then she goes to it, and that's what opens.
All right. Whatever. I like the way I said it better.
Okay. So they go out the window.
So
we see Ozma, like a hint of her.
Yeah. And she hasn't been revealed yet.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know who the little girl at the beginning is. We've been saying
and we don't
it's
know
Ozma.
what the little green thing is either. We just see this green thing over there, and there's nothing. Ozma didn't say anything. It's just this green hint on that
I
mirror.
thought it was white.
It's like green and white.
No. All right. Well, anyway, they escape, and then Mombi's downstairs, and we see the white image. And she doesn't say it's Ozma, but she's like, nobody remembers you anymore.
Or she says Ozma.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She says, I can't remember her exact line, but it's like to the effect of like, Ozma, no one will know that you're here. No one can release you because no one remembers you.
No.
No one here even remembers you.
Yeah. And then the Wheelers start to chase on the ground because they're up in the sky flying around. And the Gump is saying like, all I remember was hearing a loud bang, and then now I'm part of a couch.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he was hunted, essentially.
Yes, someone shot him.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. And then he's like, I don't feel very well put together.
Yeah. Oh, because they ask him to if he can just go straight, and he goes, I don't think I could turn if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm not very well put together.
But they set up like 3 times that he is not well put together and that he could fall apart at any time.
Yes.
So it adds some stakes, and then they start to fly over the deadly desert, and that's when the Wheelers have to stop chasing them.
Yeah, so some of the Wheelers go onto the deadly desert, and then they turn to sand.
Yeah.
Which was a really cool effect.
Yeah. And so they have to turn around and go back.
Mm-hmm. And they go tell Mombi, like, they're flying over the deadly desert. And so she says, okay, well, we have to go tell the Gnome King.
Yeah.
Especially about the chicken.
Yeah, and we find out that there's a tunnel that goes from the Emerald City all the way to the mountain that the Gnome King lives in. It's like, well, why didn't the Wheelers just take that first?
For real.
Yeah, and this was another cool matte painting that
I
they
guess
used.
they didn't know where she was going.
Yeah, I'm just saying. But this is another cool matte painting that they used. So they're going down that long hallway underground, and part of it's a set, but the tunnel has to look like it's hundreds and hundreds of yards long. So at one point, there's a matte painting in front of it that you know how you paint something to have depth.
Yeah, like
right?
on Looney Tunes.
Yeah, like on when they make the fake train tunnel.
Yeah,
but it's like that, and it's a matte painting that gives it depth. But you can see it right where the set stops and the matte painting begins, and it's really cool. It's only there for a minute, so you have to look. You have to be paying attention.
So they're flying over the deadly desert, and Dorothy falls asleep at one point. And this is something to take note of because Dorothy isn't sleeping. So this is like one time where she's actually sleeping, which, I mean, she falls asleep also in the crib thing.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be like, oh, she hasn't slept in a long time, so she's really tired. So she's actually getting to sleep. But she wakes up all of a sudden, and it's close to, it's like
it's
dawn.
Yeah.
And
Jack falls over, but I don't remember.
Yeah, well,
he's all man overboard.
It's falling apart, and Tik-tok is holding one side, and the other side starts breaking.
She wakes up, and they're like, Dorothy,
it's falling apart.
Yeah.
So Jack's holding on, and then he's holding it, and then he's like, oh no, and his head falls off.
Yeah.
And so she tells the Gump, she's like, you have to turn around. And he goes, I don't think I can. And he goes, you have to try.
Well, it doesn't say turn around. It says dive.
Oh, yeah.
Like
okay.
dive down for it.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, okay.
It was so cute. Okay. And so he dives down, and you see the head float above him, and then she like grabs it. But she starts falling, and Jack is like, I'll grab you. And he lets go. and then everything starts falling
Yeah.
apart.
And if you look carefully when Dorothy is falling, you can tell that she is like being held by strings.
Oh, really?
And like there's probably some fans like blowing her dress around. And then, but there is footage of real clouds behind her. They either composited or they green screened it. So it's two separate images stuck together on film. Two film images. So it looks cool.
It does look cool. But she lands on the couch with, I don't know if it's not Tik-tok. Oh, I guess it's just the Gump head.
Yeah, the Gump head, nobody lands on the couch but her. Tik-tok lands head first in the snow. He's made of metal, so he's fine. Billina has wings, so she can float down.
Well, she's now inside Jack's head.
Well, that's when she gets... Oh, right, she's in... No, she floats down. I remember it. Like, she flaps her wings and lands.
Does she?
Yeah, she does. And then Jack's head falls on upside down.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the Gump head is also just stuck in the snow or something like that, but upright so that he can still talk.
Yeah. So they put the Gump back together with one of the couches, and then this is when you see the Gnome King. Well, one of his gnomes, which is the little rock face people, it comes up and is like, oh, the Gnome King, they're here. And he's like, oh, good. Is there a chicken? And he says, there's no chicken.
Yeah, because the chicken is now hiding in Jack's head.
So the Gnome King then comes out and is like, this is when I don't really know what he says in this, but he takes Dorothy down into the mountain.
there's like that caves in, and she falls down in there, and this is another really cool like either green screen or compositing, but they have two separate images. Dorothy's falling, and then you see like video footage of like rocks forming or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just like all of this crystals because he says,
but it might have been like what do you call that? Time lapse.
Yeah.
It looked like it was time lapse photography of like crystallization or something.
That
like
could be. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he's talking about how the Gnome King, while she's falling, is talking about how the Emerald City, all of it was his. Like, all of the gems are from his mountain and are mined by his gnomes. And the Emerald City was built from those emeralds.
Yeah. And he can be holding the Scarecrow captive because he stole from him.
Yeah.
Essentially.
But there's one point where he says, like, all of this is mine. And Dorothy says, you have so much. And he goes, beg your pardon? So fast. Beg your pardon? You have so much.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that line. Beg your pardon?
Yeah. And then she falls all the way to the bottom and gets caught by the Scarecrow for some reason. And then he immediately disappears.
Yes. So it's to give you like hope. Oh, well, he is here. And then he's like gone.
Yeah.
So it shows you that the Gnome King has a lot of power.
Yeah. And she's like, look, I came here to ask you to set them free. Like, he didn't steal from you. It was already there when he came.
Yes.
So it's unfair.
And she starts crying because he says like, he's going to stay here.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And so she starts crying and he's like, Dorothy, don't cry.
And that's when the rest of the gang shows up.
Yeah. He goes, I know something that'll cheer you up. And he brings all those people down, all of her friends down.
Yeah. And then the Wheelers at this point have returned to Mombi and told her what the deal is. And that's when they go down the tunnel that I've already described. And then he presents a game to them. He's like, if you go in my room of ornaments and you guess which one is
The Scarecrow.
The Scarecrow.
You can leave with him.
Yeah.
But that's all he's told them. So they're like, yeah, we can do that. But he says something about, are you willing to have risk?
Yeah.
And so they don't really know what the risk is. They don't ask, but she agrees.
And TikTok says something about
Like, I wouldn't trust him. Like, he's a very magical wizard, or he's a very powerful wizard.
Yeah, but he says we don't have any other choice to accept the game because he's so powerful, is what he says.
I got
don't
it the
remember.
other way, but I didn't pay that much attention to what he says.
he essentially says, look, we have no other choice but to play this game. So whatever risk is in, like, there's risk if we say no, and there's risk if we say yes.
So, they agree to this, and then he says, okay, the Gump first. And then the Gump says, I don't have anything to touch with. And then the Gnome King says, well, you can use your antlers. And the Gump starts walking. He's like, I should have quit when I was ahead.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Which is so funny because he is just ahead.
Yeah, it's funny.
Funny little pun.
Yeah. And then he's like, let's have some refreshments while we wait.
This was another part I love, like the refreshments of them eating
Yeah, it looks cool.
limestone
Yeah.
and like melted silver.
Yeah, he says it's limestone pie and hot silver liquid or something like that.
Hot liquid silver.
Yeah, hot liquid silver.
It's like hot cocoa, I guess.
Yeah.
But then you hear these like little booms.
There's a thunderclap.
Yeah, there's like small thunderclaps, and then you see this big lightning. And they're like, what is that? And he goes, oh, 3 tries.
The Gump has used his last try. And also the Gnome King looks like, at first he's just claymation. But now he's starting to look like an actual human. Like he has human eyes now.
Yeah, he has human eyes now. So every time someone guesses the 3rd time and it's wrong, he turns in more human-like.
Right.
So they ask, like, where is he? And he goes, he was turned into an ornament. And she goes, what? You didn't tell us that was going to happen. And he said that there was going to be a risk. And so he says it's Jack's turn next. And so we just kind of go through these different
Yeah,
points.
well, Jack goes in there and he's still got Billina in his head. Right? You have to remember that because the Rock King would freak out if he knew there was a chicken there.
Yes.
So she's just staying hidden in there. And he goes in there and he guesses wrong too. So he gets turned into a trinket. And then Tik-tok is like, okay, it's my time.
And she goes over and she's, do you want me to wind up your thinking? And so she does.
Oh, but real quick, before Jack goes in there, he says something like, Tik-tok, like, I feel bad for you, Dorothy, because if you get turned into a trinket, you're going to miss, like, eating and sleeping and things like that. He's like, I don't do those things, so I'm not going to miss it. And Tik-tok isn't even alive. And Tik-tok goes, I have always valued my lifelessness.
Yes. So he goes in, he doesn't come back out because he doesn't guess right. And so it's Tik-tok's turn. And so he gets wound up, just his thinking gets wound up. And
That's also the part where he's like, it's a shame that, like, Jack is not, he's a very sweet guy, but he's not very good at thinking.
yes. Yes. But also the other thing, while she's winding up his thinking, she goes, you know, it's real unfortunate. If you could wind yourself up, you could do anything, but that's what gets you in trouble, is you having to get wound up. So he goes in and he makes like 2 guesses, and you hear the little thunderclaps. And then you see one of his, the Gnome King's gnomes come up and say, whisper to him. And he goes, it seems that your friend has stopped in the middle of the room and is completely still.
Yeah, but before that, we find out that the Gnome King also has the ruby slippers.
Oh, yes. This is, while Tik-tok is in there, this is when he shows her the ruby slippers.
Yeah, and he's talking to Dorothy, and he's like, he can't fathom why she would go to all this trouble just to save a few of her friends, right? Because he's a psychopath. And he's like, Dorothy, you know, with one click of these shoes, I can have you sent back to Kansas.
Yeah, if
And
you
she's
wanted.
like,
and you
yeah.
wouldn't remember anything.
Yeah. And she's like, why would I do that? And he's like, you could just forget about them, you know? But she's like, no, I'm going to save my friends.
So this is when the gnome comes and tells the Gnome King. And so he says, well, you can go inside and Once he finishes his guess, you can just guess after that.
Right.
And before she goes all the way in, he goes, Dorothy, you can leave now if you want.
Yeah.
And
this
she
is when
goes
he
in.
says, like, I can just use the slippers.
And so she goes in, and she finds Tik-tok, and he's all still, but and she goes, your action's all wound up. And he goes, it was part of my plan. Pretend to wind me, and let me tell you what it is. So his plan is to have Dorothy watch him say, pick something and see what he turns into.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny, too, because he guesses wrong, and then he's gone. He just vanishes into thin air. And then Dorothy doesn't even try to see what he's turned into.
Well, she looks on the table, but there's nothing green.
Yeah,
there.
I just thought it was kind of funny that it's like he comes up with his plan and it just does not help at all.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all.
It's not like a plot hole or anything. It's just kind of funny to me. So Dorothy guesses twice and she doesn't get it right. She's got one guess left. And so she starts like closing her eyes and spinning around.
Yeah, and this is when Mumby gets to the Gnome King.
Right.
And Mumby is like, they're on their way and they have I don't think she says anything about the chicken here.
Well, I like first he's like kneel and she gets down and he goes further until
And she's
got
laying
her,
on her stomach and he goes again. Further.
And she has to put like her face down on the ground.
Yeah, because she's kneeling and then he goes further. And so she lays all the way flat on the ground and then he says further again. And she's like,
I can't go any further than that.
I know, yeah. So he's just like a little asshole.
Yeah.
Little asshole. But he tells her like, oh yeah, they're already here. You were supposed to bring them to me, but they came here anyways. And this is when you find out that he's playing a game with them, but he doesn't have to play the game with them. Like he can just poof them away. But he likes playing the game because it's fun for him.
Yeah, but also I think this is how he can turn himself more human because he even says to her like,
yeah, with one more guess, I will be human.
yeah. But anyway, so Dorothy finally finds like a little, I don't know, what is it, a trapezoid?
Well, she spins around and she like goes up to this table and she knocks over something. She knocks over this emerald that's like this huge gem. It looks kind of like a
like a gem. That's what I was trying to reach for.
But she's like holding this other thing and then she opens her eyes and she's about to say Oz, but then she sees the thing she knocked over and she's like, wait, I should do that one instead. So she says Oz to it and then the scarecrow pops up.
Yeah, and he goes, Dorothy.
Yeah, Dorothy.
The scarecrow is weird to me because his mouth doesn't move. When he talks, his head just like bobbles around.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, his mouth doesn't move. He's kind of I remember when I was a kid thinking that the scarecrow looks so strange.
It does look strange.
But that's what, if you look at the books, that's how he was illustrated in the books. Same thing with the Tin Man. And then Mombi gets locked in a cage. So she won't leave. And they're like, okay, we got to look for things that are green.
And this is when the Gnome King starts reverting back to his rock formation.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? They found someone? And so they're all looking around for green things.
Yeah, well, first they find Gump, right?
Yeah, he's the second one they find.
Yeah, and then they find Jack.
Yeah.
And they bring both of them back. But then the Rock King, or I keep calling him Rock King, but he's the Gnome King. He shows up and he's mad because they're winning. And he's like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but
I don't remember either. But he kind of like says, I'm going to eat y'all.
Yeah, he decides
he tries to eat them. So he grabs the Gump and they pull the Gump's head off and he eats the couch.
Yeah, he just eats the couch.
And then they start running around, and you're like, "Wait, what about Tik-tok?"
Yeah,
the
TikTok
whole time
is
you're like,
nowhere to be
"Wait, where's
found."
Tik-tok?"
Yeah, but then he goes for Jack next, and Jack still has Billina in
his head.
his head. So he's about to be lowered down into the Gnome King's mouth, and he's like a huge volcano at this point.
And the top part of Jack falls off.
Yeah.
And you hear Billina clucking, and the Gnome King's like, "Wait, what?" And then she has an egg.
Yeah, she finally lays an egg.
She actually does lay an egg, and it falls into the Gnome King's mouth, and he pulls the pumpkin head, or he pulls Jack out, and
he just begins to crumble.
yeah, and all of his gnomes are like, poison, poison. He goes, "Don't you know that eggs are poison?" So I guess eggs are poison to gnomes.
Yeah. And that's why they hate chickens all this time.
Yeah. Also, one of the things that I wanted to say about those ruby slippers, the Gnome King looks fabulous in them. They're very cute.
Yeah.
So they
Then they grab the ruby slippers.
yeah, the ruby slippers fall off, and so Dorothy puts them on, and she goes, "I wish everyone and everything was back to how it was in Oz." And she clicks her heels, and
the Emerald City comes back. Everybody's alive now.
and they pop up in a field.
Yeah, they get transported to a field outside of the Emerald City. Yeah, and then they're out there, and Mombi's out there too in that cage.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, where's TikTok?" And they see a little war medal
On Gump's antler.
Yeah, hanging on Gump's antler. And they're like, they put their hand on it and say Oz, and now TikTok's here.
Yeah.
And then there's a homecoming over at the Emerald City.
They have like a little parade.
Yeah, and then that's where you see the Tin Man for like 3 whole seconds. And the lion's there, some weird puppet of the lion.
Yeah, because all of the people that were stone are now turning back into their selves. Whenever she clicked her heels 3 times, this is when everything started happening.
Right. And then they were trying to give Oz the Star Wars treatment. I don't know why this part reminded me of Star Wars. I guess at the end where they receive medals or whatever.
They don't get medals, do they?
No, I'm talking about in Star Wars when they get the medals for blowing up the Death Star. I don't know, but this part reminded me of it for some reason. But I won't get into it anymore. Ozma appears, and
yeah, she's in the wind. She's in the glass.
Yeah, and
in the mirror.
You realize it's the girl from the hospital. But right before that, everybody's like, "Oh, Dorothy, you should be the queen," and she's like, "No, I can't.
I need to go home."
Yeah, and then Ozma appears, and Ozma's like, "Help me step through the glass." And then we find out.
I used to wear a necklace on my forehead like her to look like her.
And then we find out that Ozma's father was the ruler of the Emerald Kingdom
Before the wizard was there.
Yes, and the wizard made a deal with Mombi that they would.
No, the Gnome King did.
Oh, the Gnome King. I don't know. It was confusing, but anyway, said I'll give you 30 heads to like overthrow the Emerald City, basically, and let me have control of it. And then Ozma takes away her witch powers and says, like, a witch without powers is a very
sad being.
Yeah, like a sad existence. And then the Mombi says,
I don't know.
She says something like she has a one-liner about like
you
can be sure of that.
Sure is something like that.
Yeah. And then we find out that Ozma is Jack's mom because when she appears, Jack goes, "That's my mom."
Mom.
Yeah.
My real mom.
And then Dorothy says goodbye to everybody and gets wished back to Kansas. And I thought it was funny that she goes, "Why is it getting so bright in here?" But then she's laying in the mud after the storm, and Toto finds her. And then her uncle finds her.
And everyone was looking for her because there was a fire at the hospital. And the doctor went back in to go save his equipment and
never came out. Yeah. And the nurse is being carted off in
by the police, which I'm like, why did she get pulled off by the police?
They were probably doing something illegal.
Maybe.
That's what I always thought when I was a kid, is like they probably found out that they're abusing patients or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
And she's in a cage.
Just like the one she was in Oz.
Not exactly like it. But.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was funny too. After the uncle finds her and everybody comes up behind him, he's holding her in his arms, and he goes, "It's Dorothy." Like that's not the person that they were all looking for.
Oh.
It was kind of weird. But anyway,
Well, I mean, there may have been other patients that were around.
yeah, I guess so. I just thought it was kind of funny for him to go, "It's
Yeah.
Dorothy."
So yeah, and then then it cuts to her uncle is working on the roof, so he's not playing cripple anymore. Because before she left, he had broken his leg, but his aunt Aunt M said his leg is mended. That leg has been mended. It is mended.
Whatever.
He can work.
She's just being a bitch and
Anyways.
cracking the whip on his ass.
So he's working on the roof. And the house
is finished.
pretty much done. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
that's it.
She runs off outside.
No,
and she sees Ozma.
Yeah, Ozma says, like, I want to come and check in on you every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So she talks to Ozma in the mirror, and she tells Aunt M to come look, but then thinks
Ozma
better.
says no.
And then, does Ozma say
No,
no?
she shakes her head no.
Yeah. But, I mean, as a kid, maybe you thought Oz is a real place, but you watch these movies as an adult, and you're like, no, this kid just had a traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and imagined all this.
Yep.
But that's the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron, I think I know where you're going with this already, but on a scale of 1 to 9 cat lives, how many cat lives does this movie slay?
10 cat lives.
There's only 9.
10 cat lives.
No, I don't want to break our scale, please.
Okay, 9 cat lives. I love this movie. I think this movie is really fun, and if you like spooky stuff, it's a little bit creepy, but in a really fun way. It's really there's some really funny moments in the movie, and it's a really interesting and intriguing movie. It's very dynamic. It's one of my favorite movies. It is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. And if you think this movie is not that good, just remember all of our ratings are based on our own opinions.
Yes.
We're not taking
So
any
suck our dicks.
We're not taking anything else into account except for our opinions on the movie.
Yep.
So if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. For me, or are you going to ask me?
Yeah, Joey, I want to know, what is your scale of 1 to 9 cat lives?
What is my
for this?
scale of
I
1
don't
to-
know. How many cat lives did this movie slay?
I am also going to go with 9 cat lives.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. This movie, nobody saw it when it came out. My whole childhood, I used to ask people if they knew about this movie, and they didn't. Very few people seem to know about this movie.
That's why we bonded over it so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. But if you look on the internet will say, like, any movie that people didn't go see that was pretty good, they'll be like, this movie is criminally underrated, like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, that movie is just not very good. For me, this is my opinion again, this movie, and I don't like to throw this word around, is extremely underrated and underappreciated.
Yeah.
And I think if more people just saw it, they would understand that. I think this movie is like dark in a great way. I think it's scary, but not too scary. It has a million great characters in it, and it's fun, and it's well paced. It's a well made movie. It was made by Disney, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
It's just good, and I think everybody should see it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So for the last thing that we're going to do before we end this episode, how long is this episode so far?
1 hour and 50 minutes.
Woo! Well, it's going to be probably about 2 hours long.
I think our goal from now on should be to talk about the movie for as long as the movie. So this
Maybe,
movie was 2 hours, so we'll make a 2 hour episode.
Yeah. Also, while we talk about it, you can watch it. Anyways, so we're going to play a game, and this game is called One-Liners.
One-liners.
One-liners. So this game, I'm going to tell you one-liners of movies, and you have to tell me what movie it's from.
Got it.
Some of them you might be able to also say who the character was, but I don't have who the character was. So
Okay.
So for the first example, it's yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Die Hard.
Yeah. So that's the example. The next one is it's just a flesh wound.
'Tis only a flesh wound. Is that it?
No, it's only a flesh wound.
Oh, is that the actual line?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm feeling like somebody used that in another movie. Monty Python on the Holy Grail?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right.
I thought you were going to be like, oh, spam a lot or something.
No. Get in, losers. We're going shopping.
Mean Girls?
Yeah, good job. I wasn't sure if you would get that one or
I
not.
wouldn't have, but Joliet's been watching that movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I saw that movie once when it came out and then never again until our daughter started watching it.
It was Beauty Killed the Beast.
I want to say Godzilla, but it's the other monster. King Kong?
King Kong.
Okay, yeah.
Joe, you're good at this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you picked the most famous one-liners.
I couldn't find other ones that weren't. Okay. I'm ready for my close-up.
Oh, man. I feel like I know who says it, but I don't know the movie. Is it Marilyn Monroe that says it?
I have no idea.
I don't know the movie.
It's from the 50s, so maybe.
Some Like It Hot?
Sunset Boulevard.
Oh.
Okay. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
That would definitely be Gone with the Wind.
Yep.
Did you watch that Simpsons episode where they're showing that in the old folks home that Grandpa lives in?
No.
And it gets to that part and he goes, Scarlett runs up to him and says, well, what will I do? And he goes, frankly, I love you. Let's get married. Like it's clearly a different voice. And then like it's just so that the old people will be happy.
Oh. Okay. There's no crying in baseball.
Oh, come on. That's easy. League of Their Own.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
What? Like it's hard? I don't think you're going to get this one.
Oh, no. I do not know what that. I don't know that one at all.
Let me do an impression of it. What? Like it's hard?
I don't know.
It's from Legally Blonde.
Oh, okay.
Whenever he goes, you got into Harvard? And she goes, what? Like it's hard?
I've only seen that movie once, and it was with you for this podcast.
Okay. I'm walking here.
Midnight Cowboy.
Yep.
Dustin Hoffman. That's a movie we got to watch for this.
Okay. Last one. Where is that? Time just gets away from us.
Time just gets away from us. That does not sound familiar at all. You don't have any other hints for me or anything?
Hallie Steinfeld says the line.
I'm just going to say I don't know. What is it?
True Grit.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I've seen both of them. I saw
There's two.
Yeah, there's a Coen Brothers one that came out maybe 10 years ago, and then there's one from like the 60s with John Wayne.
Okay.
All right, so is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you for joining us for another one. This has been Slay the Cat, a movie podcast. And don't forget to, if you want to write into us, it's joeyandaaron at gmail.com. joeyanderinpod@gmail.com.
Joey in or and?
Joey and.
Joey, A-N-D, Aaron, pod at gmail.com.
Yes. Thank you for saying that more clearly. That's going to do it for us.
Joey and Aaron, pod. Sorry.
joeyanderinpod and gmail.com. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here. Don't forget to slay and neuter your cats. See you guys next time.
Bye.